Today's video is part 1 of a 3-part presentation. A link to part 2 will be added to the YouTube video description area of this episode once it is confirmed to be available. Now, you may be wondering, haven't I already started another 3-parter that is yet unfinished? Well, yes, I have started a 3-part response to the assertion of atheism requiring more faith than belief in God does. And part 3 is still in the works for the simple reason that I am prioritizing quality over expedience. But fortunately, with the 3-parter that I launched today, I do not expect to have to choose between those two things. So, without further ado, let's roll.
Welcome to today's video, where we're going to be talking about how feminism has sold out traditional women.
Feminism has sold out traditional women? I was not aware of any such thing having happened, but I will be happy to analyze why Abby of Classically Abby thinks that it has. And my first installment on this effort begins in just a moment. Hello, Internet. This is Sophia, the Red Angel, doing my best on this channel to bolster social justice, examine the popular culture, and promote the general betterment of society through the powers of logic, reason, and respect for evidence. If you like that, then subscribe to this channel, ring the bell, share, and comment. I hope that you find these goals to be important because even though we finally have a human being in the White House instead of the orangutan in chief that we have had to endure for the past 4 years, it is scary that there are so many Americans who do not realize what a train wreck the Trump administration was. Anywho, Abby from Classically Abby, whom I get the impression is one of those who does not realize how terrible the Trump presidency was, thinks that feminism sold out a demographic of women that she calls traditional women. Of course, I have no idea how exactly feminism has allegedly done this, and when you come and think of it, even the term traditional women is in itself an ambiguous term, given that what kind of woman would be seen as traditional would depend on what tradition you are going by. For example, most Americans would probably say that it is very traditional for a woman to make for her family a nice honey-glazed ham for Christmas dinner. However, both Abby and myself are from a Jewish cultural background in which both ham and Christmas are decidedly untraditional. That said, I highly doubt that such hair-splitting details are part of what Abby is referring to here. So, what is she referring to?
Lately, I've been thinking a lot about how women who want to stay at home and who have figured out that staying at home would make them happier feel like feminism has sold them out.
Okay, so by traditional women, she is referring to women who want to stay at home. And unless I am grossly misinterpreting her, she does not mean that they work remotely, but rather live in such a way that taking care of the home and the family is their job. I, of course, am not going to argue with her assertion that most cultures have traditionally hemmed women, for the most part, into the role of wife and mother and implicitly housekeeper. And yes, feminism does fight against legal, social, and economic constraints that force or coerce women into such roles. But I was not aware of feminism having any problem with a woman who lives in such a manner as long as it is truly by her own choice.
Or has made them feel guilty for actually wanting to stay at home more.
Feel guilty for wanting to stay at home more? Well, I do not know what kinds of feminists Abby hangs out with, but I have been in feminist circles a lot. You could say that that is the particular echo chamber that I immerse myself in. And do you know how many feminists I recall communicating with who want women to feel guilty if staying at home is their true preference? The answer is that it is a nice round number, 0. Now, if this woman who wants to stay at home more is trying to cajole or pressure other women who may not feel the same way into doing the same, then yes, a lot of feminists would want that woman to feel guilty, just like anyone who would try to pressure a woman into that role when that isn't what she wants.
And it's something that I think is a really important topic, especially in 2021.
I think that this is an important topic at any time, which is why it is important to avoid misrepresenting movements such as feminism in the discussion.
And talk about why it's natural for women to want to stay at home.
Natural for women to want to stay at home? Well, there may indeed be a natural tendency for women, on average, to want to stay at home more than men, on average. But there is a big difference between an average tendency on one hand and a universal characteristic on the other.
Now, I'm not saying that all women need to stay at home. That is not what I'm saying.
Well, I am certainly relieved to hear that you do not feel that staying at home is what all women need to do. But if you just believe that it is an option that women should have, as opposed to something that all women should be pushed into, then what exactly is your problem with feminism?
Feminism has told women that there's a wage gap.
No, that's not feminism that is telling women that there is a wage gap. It is something else that is saying that, something called statistics, just to clear that up.
That they've been oppressed, that they have to be in the workplace because other women before us have fought for that.
On what planet does feminism say that women have to be in the workplace because other women have fought for that? In all the feminist circles that I am familiar with, and I have communicated with many feminists in my days, the fight for women to be in the workplace has been about making sure that women who want or need to be in the workplace can be there and get treated fairly there. But no, it is not at all about forcing women into the workplace or about giving them some kind of guilt trip if they are neither desiring nor in need of being there. If women prefer and are able to work at home, the goal of feminism is not to give them a guilt trip, but rather, just as in any other kind of workplace, it is to make sure that they are treated fairly there.
And when women kind of start to realize that maybe they don't find their happiness through work as much.
You know, Abby, not all women who go for careers outside the house do so either because of guilt or because they feel that that is what will bring them the greatest personal happiness and fulfillment. Some of them, you know, occasionally might be motivated by this other factor known as necessity. Women who would rather be stay-at-home moms but would be unable to make ends meet without the income that they can only bring in by going out and getting a job. Are you planning to address such situations at any point, or are you just going to just continue glossing them over?
Or maybe they want to work part-time rather than full-time.
Working part-time rather than full-time, also an option that is contingent not just upon wanting to do so, but being of enough means to be able to get by on just a part-time income, as well as being able to find a job that does not make them choose between being full-time or not having a job at all.
And after investing all of this time into an education, that they decide that maybe they're happier at home, women feel trapped.
Investing all that time into an education? I would say that even for a stay-at-home mom, having an education would be beneficial. After all, if raising their children is part of what they have dedicated themselves to doing full-time, having an education would be quite beneficial for giving their children a good head start in life. That said, I can definitely see one reason why a woman might feel trapped if sometime after college she realizes that she would prefer to be a stay-at-home mom. But that is not because of all the time she has invested in her education. Rather, it is because of all the money that she invested in her education. But the culprit that you should blame for that is not feminism, but rather it is the crushing student debt crisis. Or maybe she had financial assistance to avoid getting into such massive debt, and deep down she realizes that there were other women that she was given this assistance instead of. Maybe she feels that if she decides to stay at home instead of pursuing her career further, she is letting down the women who would have liked to have her opportunity and or whoever picked her over those other women. But in that case, once again, it is the out-of-control college tuition crisis that is what really let those other women down. And it is that crisis, not feminism, that should be blamed for any guilt that those women might feel. And it is those who enable that crisis by doing depraved things, such as, say, opposing remedies to the problem, that should feel guilty.
I don't think it used to be as controversial to say that having your priorities in order is a good thing.
I do not think that it is controversial even now to say that having your priorities in order is a good thing.
That putting your faith and your family and your community over your work is actually kind of natural, and it's more natural to the way that we as humans function.
So by having your priorities in order, what you are referring to is that someone avoids prioritizing their career over other goals that you think that they ought to have in life, irrespective of whether or not they even want those things. And it is the insinuation that people who do not share those other goals somehow do not have their priorities in order. That insinuation is what is offensive. Oh, that is not what you mean to say? Well, if it isn't, then don't flip and use those terms interchangeably, because if you do, then people are well within reason to assume that that is exactly what you flip and mean.
And I don't think that finding meaning through work is a bad thing. Of course not.
No, just that women who prefer to focus on that rather than on raising families supposedly do not have their priorities in order. And don't tell me, oh no, that's not what I meant, because when you use two expressions interchangeably, you give people very sound reason to interpret you as seeing these expressions as being synonymous. So now we have agreed that there is nothing wrong with a woman staying at home rather than pursuing a career outside the home, provided that two criteria are met. First of all, it needs to be truly her choice and not pressed on her by cultural and/or other coercions. Second of all, just as with any other kind of work, a woman who stays at home needs to be treated fairly with regards to the work that she does there. And that is work. And we are now at a breaking point. A link will be added to part 2 in the YouTube video description area for this episode once part 2 is confirmed to be available. Anywho, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please hit the thumbs up button and leave your comment in the comments area below. Make sure that you are subscribed to this channel and that the bell icon is active so as to increase the chance that you receive notifications when I upload new videos to this channel in the future. Share this video with your friends and everyone else, whether by social media or by whatever other means. And until next time, see ya!